Arsenal's transfer story in the 2025/26 season is not just about names being linked, fees being discussed, or agents holding meetings behind closed doors. It is about a club that believes it is standing on the edge of something big and knows that the next set of decisions could define an entire era. Under Mikel Arteta, Arsenal have moved beyond the phase of rebuilding and into a period where every transfer window is judged by one question alone. Does this signing take the team closer to major trophies? The club's recruitment strategy has evolved dramatically compared to the chaotic years of the past, and the current stream of rumors, negotiations, loans, and contract discussions reflects a club operating with far more clarity, patience, and long-term vision. Arsenal are no longer shopping reactively. They are planning proactively, identifying profiles months in advance, tracking data, personality, adaptability, and tactical intelligence just as much as raw talent. This has shaped the tone of the latest transfer news, where fewer names leak out, but when they do, they tend to fit a very specific pattern aligned with Arteta's footballing philosophy. The biggest talking point surrounding Arsenal's transfer activity continues to be the forward line, an area that has delivered goals but still provokes debate among supporters, analysts, and even former players. Despite strong contributions across the squad, the feeling inside the club is that the margin between competing for titles and winning them outright often comes down to moments inside the penalty area. Arsenal's recruitment team has therefore spent significant time monitoring strikers across Europe who combine physical presence, intelligent movement, pressing intensity, and technical quality. The rumors linking Arsenal to high-profile forwards are not random. They reflect a search for a striker who can function within Arteta's positional play system rather than disrupt it. Arsenal do not want a passenger who waits for service, nor a chaotic presence who breaks structure. Instead, the ideal signing is someone who can drop deep, link play, occupy center backs, attack space aggressively, and still deliver consistent goal numbers over a long season. At the same time, Arsenal's internal discussions have been shaped heavily by the fitness and form of players already at the club. Gabriel Jesus, for instance, remains highly valued for his work rate, pressing, and technical link-up, but injuries and inconsistency in front of goal have forced the club to reassess how much they can rely on him as the primary number 9. Eddie Nketiah's future has also been a topic of speculation, with Arsenal weighing his development, contract situation, and role within the squad. These internal dynamics directly influence transfer decisions because Arsenal are careful not to stockpile players without clear pathways. Every potential arrival must align with departures, squad balance, and wage structure, a lesson learned from previous eras where bloated squads became a problem. Beyond the striker debate, Arsenal's midfield planning has quietly become one of the most fascinating aspects of their transfer strategy. Declan Rice has established himself as a cornerstone of the team, offering defensive solidity, ball progression, and leadership. But the club understands that modern elite football demands depth and tactical flexibility. Arsenal are constantly monitoring midfielders who can play multiple roles, whether as a deep line controller, a box-to-box presence, or an advanced playmaker who can operate between the lines. Contract talks, potential renewals, and succession planning all play into this, especially as players approach peak age or enter the final years of their deals. Arsenal's aim is to avoid sudden drop-offs by gradually refreshing the squad, rather than waiting for problems to appear. Defensively, Arsenal's recent success has been built on structure, discipline, and understanding between players rather than individual brilliance alone. William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes have formed a partnership that gives the team confidence to defend high up the pitch, compress space, and dominate territory. This stability has allowed Arsenal to be selective in the transfer market rather than desperate. However, depth remains a concern, particularly with the physical demands of competing in multiple competitions. Arsenal's scouting department has therefore kept a close eye on defenders capable of playing across the backline, comfortable on the ball, and tactically intelligent enough to step into midfield when required. These profiles are essential for Arteta's system, which often asks defenders to initiate attacks rather than simply clear danger. Loan moves have also played a significant role in Arsenal's wider squad management, and recent news highlights how carefully these decisions are being handled. Young players are no longer sent out on loan simply to gain minutes. Instead, Arsenal focus on placing them in environments that mirror the tactical demands and intensity of the first team. This ensures that when they return, the adaptation period is minimal. Some loans are designed as shop windows ahead of permanent transfers, while others are genuine development pathways for players still seen as part of Arsenal's long-term plans. This dual approach allows the club to maintain financial sustainability while keeping options open for the future. Contract situations remain another key theme dominating Arsenal news. With several important players entering critical stages of their deals, the club has been proactive in opening talks early rather than waiting for pressure to build. Arsenal are keen to protect their assets, avoid losing players for reduced fees, and maintain stability within the squad. At the same time, they are disciplined when it comes to wages, unwilling to break their structure even for star players. This balance between ambition and control reflects a club that has learned from past mistakes and is determined not to repeat them. The influence of Mikel Arteta on every aspect of Arsenal's transfer dealings cannot be overstated. Unlike some managers who leave recruitment largely to sporting directors, Arteta is deeply involved in identifying targets, assessing character, and ensuring that new signings align with the culture he has built at the club. Arsenal want players who are hungry, coachable, resilient under pressure, and fully committed to collective success. This emphasis on mentality has shaped many of their recent signings and continues to guide current negotiations. It also explains why Arsenal are sometimes willing to walk away from deals if conditions do not feel right, even when fans are eager for quick announcements. From a broader perspective, Arsenal's transfer activity must also be understood within the context of intense competition at the top of the Premier League. Rivals are spending heavily, refreshing squads, and seeking marginal gains, which increases the pressure on Arsenal to get decisions right. However, rather than being drawn into reckless spending wars, Arsenal appear content to trust their process, believing that smart recruitment combined with internal development can sustain success over multiple seasons. This philosophy has shaped the current wave of rumors and reports, many of which point to calculated moves rather than headline-grabbing splurges. As the transfer window progresses, the narrative around Arsenal continues to evolve, driven by a mix of confirmed developments, credible rumors, and speculative gossip. Supporters follow every update closely, aware that each decision could influence the club's fortunes in domestic and European competitions. The sense around the club is one of quiet confidence rather than panic, with an understanding that the foundations are strong and that additions are meant to elevate, not overhaul, the existing structure. Arsenal's transfer news is therefore less about chaos and more about refinement, less about desperation and more about ambition, carefully matched with discipline. The debate around Victor Gyökeres at Arsenal has become one of the most polarizing discussions of the season. Not because he lacks talent, but because his performances sit right on the fault line between what supporters see with their eyes and what the numbers suggest beneath the surface. On paper, Gyökeres' recent run looks like the breakthrough Arsenal hoped for when they invested heavily in him. Goals arriving more frequently, confidence growing, and moments of physical dominance that hint at why Arteta and the recruitment team believed he could translate his prolific form from Portugal into Premier League success. Yet football rarely allows simple conclusions, and when Gyökeres' performances are stripped down and examined closely, tactically, statistically, and contextually, the picture becomes far more nuanced. The question is not simply whether he is scoring, but whether his current output represents a sustainable upward curve or a temporary spike driven by favorable circumstances. To understand Gyökeres' current situation, it is essential to revisit the expectations placed upon him when he arrived. Arsenal did not sign him merely as a squad option or developmental striker. He was recruited as a forward capable of changing the dynamic of big matches. His profile was attractive because it blended power, mobility, pressing intensity, and finishing, a rare combination that appeared tailor-made for Arteta's demands. However, the Premier League has a long history of exposing strikers who dominated elsewhere, and early signs suggested Gyökeres would need time. His initial performances were uneven, characterized by strong physical duels and hard running, but also by missed chances. heavy touches under pressure, and periods where he appeared disconnected from Arsenal's intricate positional play. This early phase shaped much of the skepticism that still colors perceptions of him today. What has shifted in recent weeks is not just the volume of goals, but the way Gyökeres is arriving at them. His movement inside the box has improved noticeably, particularly his timing when attacking the near post, and his willingness to stay central rather than drifting wide in search of the ball. This adjustment matters in an Arsenal side built around wide creators and advanced midfielders who thrive when the central striker occupies defenders. Gyökeres has begun to trust that chances will come if he holds his position and commits to the structure, rather than trying to manufacture involvement. This trust is often the difference between a striker forcing the game and one allowing it to come to him. Confidence plays a huge role here. Strikers operate on belief as much as technique, and Gyökeres' body language has shifted. Where there was once hesitation, an extra touch, a delayed shot, there is now a sharper decisiveness. He is shooting earlier, attacking crosses more aggressively, and imposing himself physically in ways that were missing before. These are not abstract qualities. They translate directly into goals, particularly in a team like Arsenal that generates pressure through sustained possession. When defenders are pinned deep, a striker who commits fully can feast on half chances, rebounds, and moments of chaos inside the box. Yet this is where the statistical debate becomes unavoidable. While Gyökeres' goal tally has risen, his underlying numbers remain less dominant than those of elite Premier League strikers. His shots per game are modest, his expected goals align closely with his actual output, and his involvement in build-up play is still inconsistent. This suggests that while he is converting opportunities at a reasonable rate, he is not yet forcing defenses into constant crisis. In other words, he is benefiting from Arsenal's control rather than driving it himself. That distinction matters when assessing whether a striker has truly arrived or is simply riding a productive spell. Context further complicates the picture. Many of Gyökeres' recent goals have come in matches where Arsenal dominated territory and possession, facing opponents either struggling defensively or forced into low blocks. In these scenarios, the striker's job is simplified: stay central, attack space, and finish chances created by others. Gyökeres has done this well, but critics argue that the real test lies elsewhere. Against elite opposition, in tight matches where space is limited and every touch is contested. Earlier in the season, these were the matches where Gyökeres faded, struggling to impose himself when Arsenal's dominance was reduced. The question now is whether his improved form will translate upward when the level rises. Tactically, Arteta has also adjusted his usage. Gyökeres is receiving clearer instructions about when to press, when to drop, and when to stay high. Arsenal's pressing structure relies on synchronization, and earlier misalignment often left Gyökeres chasing shadows or arriving late. Recently, his pressing has looked more controlled, conserving energy for decisive actions rather than constant sprints. This has improved his sharpness in the box, a subtle but important change that reflects growing tactical understanding rather than pure physical improvement. Another layer of the debate concerns Gyökeres' role within the squad. Arsenal do not require him to be a traditional target man, or a false nine in the mold of Gabriel Jesus. Instead, he occupies a hybrid role that demands sacrifice. At times, his job is to create space rather than occupy it, dragging defenders wide to free runners from midfield. These contributions rarely appear in headline stats, yet they are central to how Arsenal function. When supporters judge Gyökeres purely on goals, they risk missing these structural contributions. But equally, Arsenal did not invest in him solely for invisible work. Goals remain the currency by which strikers are judged, and this tension defines much of the discourse. Psychologically, Gyökeres appears to be settling. The Premier League's intensity, scrutiny, and pace can overwhelm players initially, and his earlier frustration was visible. Now, there is a sense of acceptance, not resignation, but adaptation. He looks more comfortable absorbing criticism, less reactive to missed chances, and more focused on the next action. This mental resilience is often the final hurdle for strikers, transitioning into elite leagues, and its development suggests his improvement may be more than superficial. Still, caution remains warranted. Football history is filled with strikers who enjoyed productive bursts only to regress once defenses adjusted or confidence dipped. Gyökeres' current form must survive tactical tweaks from opponents who begin to study his tendencies more closely. If defenders start doubling him earlier, cutting off his preferred runs, or forcing him into uncomfortable zones, his response will reveal how deep his adaptation truly runs. Elite strikers evolve continuously. Good strikers plateau once initial momentum fades. Another critical factor is Arsenal's squad dynamics. Competition for places sharpens performance, and Gyökeres' rise coincides with rotation, injuries, and tactical experimentation around him. Whether he can maintain output when competition intensifies, or when he is asked to shoulder greater responsibility, remains uncertain. Consistency across months, not weeks, defines genuine form. When weighing all these elements together, the most accurate conclusion sits between the extremes. Gyökeres has undeniably improved, and dismissing his recent performances as pure statistical illusion would be unfair. His movement, confidence, and understanding of Arsenal's system have progressed in visible ways that numbers alone cannot fully capture. At the same time, proclaiming him a finished product would ignore lingering limitations and chance generation, influence against elite opponents, and all-round dominance. In essence, Gyökeres is no longer struggling, but he is not yet definitive. His form is real, but it is still fragile, dependent on confidence, structure, and context. Arsenal fans are right to feel encouraged, but patience remains essential. The coming months will determine whether this spell marks the foundation of a long-term solution or simply a productive chapter in an ongoing adaptation.